How do you think about different sectors? And I think you have to be careful on this because different sectors would respond differently and not necessarily the way you think, right? You and I have talked about this, like the energy market actually did really well, believe it or not, under this administration, Biden Harris. And this is despite all the nonsense from the likes of Jennifer Granholm, our energy secretary, or former governor of Michigan and former MSNBC host, who's now the energy secretary, who doesn't really seem to understand energy markets. But in fact, the flip side of that is she's helped drive energy prices higher, right? By shutting off the spigot here and thereby contributed to greater margin growth within some of these energy companies. So it's fascinating in that, you think, okay, Donald Trump is going to be good for energy markets. And fundamentally, I strongly believe that. And I think it's the right thing from a national security standpoint, from an economic standpoint. But simultaneously, profit margins could actually decline if you have more energy on the market.
Yep. So we kind of wrestled with this issue in a 76 report a few weeks ago on the specific topic of energy markets and the election. And, it's sort of, there's a debate because on the, Trump's point is to bring oil prices down through more domestic production, through, I think, diplomacy with OPEC and international players. His point is to, permit more drilling in general, right? It's a pretty simple platform drill, baby drill. So he wants energy prices low because he views it as, and justifiably, he views it as really kind of a key source of inflation. Biden Harris administration, on the other hand, they want the green transition. And, to do that, you generally want higher fossil fuel prices. So they got higher fossil fuel prices actually over the course of their administration. And it was a key reason why some of those energy stocks did quite well. I mean, the Ukraine situation was also a major variable there in the recovery from the COVID depths. I think, net, I think if I'm an energy investor and we have a number of different energy related investments across the model portfolios, I think a Trump victory would be a more favorable outcome because it gives you more runway for these various kind of fossil fuel infrastructure plays and sort of domestic producers. Gives you more runway and sort of like a longer lifespan, even if oil prices might be lower for various reasons under a Trump administration.
Yeah.
Natural gas.
I think, go ahead.
No, I was just going to make a quick point on natural gas, which is, one big area policy difference between the two candidates is Trump's very interested in exporting natural gas and via LNG and setting up pipelines and setting up terminals that would actually potentially boost domestic natural gas prices somewhat because now our own supplies would be kind of brought more aggressively into international markets. So it's a lot of like puts and takes. I think net, for a variety of reasons, energy investors should be rooting for a Trump victory.
Mm-hmm. Just long-term investment, I think, too, is kind of important. It's just amazing that the energy sector has held up as well as it has. And I think that's sort of in spite of some of the people controlling things. Speaking of which, you look at, because again, I do fundamentally believe like markets kind of rule, right? And that's what sometimes some people forget. We were talking about Jennifer Granholm, everybody's favorite, right? Don has some rather unfortunate things to say about her. But anyway, Jennifer Granholm had insisted back in 2022 that everybody could just save money if they would just go out there and they would buy an EV. Like that would just fix everything somehow. Well, it turns out that didn't fix anything. Nobody went and bought the EVs, despite their sort of pressure to do so from the White House. And Ford just announced this week, it's totally canceling its Cybertruck, the EV Cybertruck that was supposed to be so exciting, right? Like it's no longer happening. They're going to invest in these hybrid vehicles, something that, by the way, Toyota also said. I mean, what's your commentary on that? I guess you can sort of force feed them, but at some point, when push comes to shove, these companies are like, wait a second, I need to make money. And I can't make money right now on the whole EV thing, so I'm going to pivot.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, look, the government can say we want, 50% penetration of EVs by this date or whatever their thresholds are, but there's the reality of the marketplace, and the consumers need to buy these vehicles, and the vehicles need to be produced. And speaking of Toyota, I read, within the past few months, the chairman of Toyota, which is really a world-class car manufacturer, by the way, and just makes a great product. I own two. But they and bought one recently,
Shout out
actually,
for
a Forerunner.
Toyota.
Yeah, but no, he doesn't believe that it'll exceed EVs will exceed 30% of the market, even in any kind of reasonable time frame. I think the hybrid approach, just as a practical person, I mean, it does make a lot of sense, right? You get the best of both worlds, and that acceleration off the electric motor, and the utility of being on electric power locally. So that makes a lot of sense. I think, look, at the end of the day, the government could wish for all these things and talk about all these things, but it's the car manufacturers and the consumers are the ones who are going to decide, what, where the equilibrium kind of settles. So I'd be,
Hey,
you know,
you'd be what, reluctant to go all in on
yeah. I
EV?
mean, look,
Look, Hertz found it out, right? The kind of the hard way. I mean, Ford taking a is it 8 or $1.9 billion charge on this thing? Hertz also having to take a big charge. They had hired Tom Brady to go out and promote these things, and suddenly they realized, gosh, consumers, when they arrive in a new place, don't really love the idea of renting an EV because they don't know if they could charge the darn thing. Thank you very much. And it was like the cart was before the horse. I mean, you have to have the infrastructure built out in order for people to feel secure so that they know where they can get to a charging station. It's not like you're going to land in Timbuktu and say, oh, yeah, give me my EV. No, thank you.
Yeah, and in speaking of the infrastructure, we've talked a lot about maybe transitioning a little bit to AI. My favorite topic of these data centers. The economy is going to require a lot of electricity generation, and it could come from EVs, but it's really on the margin right now. It's coming from all these data centers and the massive power requirements to supply all of these NVIDIA chips, right, and these AI servers and machines. So that's yet another strain on the electric grid.